All right, so I've learned how to map my contents to make it dynamic. However, sometimes I don't really want it to be that dynamic. If I'm creating a table, it's probably for a purpose. So I do want to keep the same content, but I want to create some student objects. Now, I could do the same thing. I could say const student1 and then string equals, and then put all the student info here. But instead, what I want to do is actually create an object for each student. So what I'll do is const student1 equals, and then I open and close these to create an object data type. And inside of here, I can do name, and we'll say the name is Dan. ID, and we'll say the ID is 1, 3, 4, just a bunch of numbers. The other benefit of doing it this way rather than like this is each of these has to be a string, but I can mix data types here. So I can use numbers here as well. Major, this would be a string, computer science, and GPA 3.9. Why not? So I have my GPA, I have my ID, name, all that stuff. I can make another student as well, student2. We'll say Dustin, and we'll change this to 986, something like that. And janitorial services major 2.1. He's okay. So I have two students here, two students as objects. Well, I actually don't want these to be separate objects. I want them to be an array so that I can pass that array. So instead of doing student1, student2, I would do const students equals, and then open and close this. And then I'm just going to take this stuff out, paste it here, put a comma to separate each one. Take this stuff out, paste it here. Let me get rid of this stuff. All right. What if I wanted to type this stuff with TypeScript? Well, that's where it gets a little bit messy, because the type would be, it would be an object. It'd be an array of objects, and the object would be name, string, ID, number, major, string, and GPA number. So this is essentially saying the type that the object is. However, this is going to get unwieldy pretty quick if I want to use this type in other places. So what TypeScript allows me to do is actually create a type. So we're going to say type student, and we'll capitalize that. Student equals, and we'll put our type information in here, all of this stuff that we just did. I'm going to take this out, and I'll just put it right here. So I have my type now for my student, and now instead of trying to put all that whole object here, I can just say student, because now the type is this. And if I try to add another thing here, like hobby or clubs or whatever, Spanish or something like that, it's going to say clubs does not exist in the type student. So it's actually holding me to ensuring that I have these components and only these components in this type. Well, that's good, but I also want to be able to access this type from my table as well once I get the data over there. So another way that we can sort of encapsulate things, and I believe this would be kind of like an abstraction sort of thing, we'll create another new folder called types. And inside of here, I'll create a new file called students.ts, not TSX actually, because I'm not doing any JSX stuff in here. I'm just putting a type in there with TypeScript. So I'll say students.ts. Then I'm going to cut this whole student out here and paste it into here, into my students.ts, and I'll export that. Now, I don't need to, I could do the default export. I'm going to leave it not default in case I want to do something else with this student. Maybe I want some functions associated with the student or whatever. It's also just good practice to do them differently. So good practice in the sense of learning, not good practice in the sense of coding practice. But for demonstration's sake, I'm going to leave default out. Now inside of here, in order to use this student, now that I took it out, I actually have to import it the same way as I imported the other thing. So I'm going to import student from types/student. I probably should name this student singular, not students plural. Whoops. And hey, Visual Studio is smart enough to automatically update my import here, which is kind of nice. So now I have access to that student data type inside of my page.tsx, which is really cool. So I have my student type here, list. I have my 2 students here. And now I want to pass this in to my my table. So we'll do that here. Students equals, and we'll pass in students. Okay, now it's saying students doesn't exist here. So I need to go back over to my table, and we need to add that as a prop. So first, before I do that, I'm going to import student from type/student. And I am going to comma separate this students, and the type will be an array of student, singular data type. So it's going to be an array of these students. Now I want to map these to these rows. I want each row to represent one student. So I'm going to take this whole thing out of the table body, and we're going to go ahead and go back to mapping like we did before. We'll say props.students.map. And once again, we'll need to have our open close parentheses, arrow pointer, and open close parentheses again. Here we'll have our singular student, and here we'll have our iterator. And inside of here, I'm going to have a table row, and then I'll have my cells. Now for each cell, I want to grab one of these properties of students. Now since we know the data type student, VS Code is going to be able to help us out here. So we'll say student.name, then student.major, then student. ID was before major. Okay, student.id, student.major, and student.gpa. Okay. And then I want to use my iterator at the parent object, which in this case, up here was a cell, but we're dynamically generating rows instead of cells for this. So we're going to put the key here. So say key equals I here. And I did this correctly, which I didn't. Something happened there. Whoops, that's the wrong thing to show. Cannot read. Okay. So wait, what happened here? Let's go back to page.tsx. I passed in students, so that should be good. My table props.students.map. Interesting. Let's see what I did wrong here. Students equals, this is all set. Students equals students. I had to try to figure out why this is not working here. Okay, we have both of our students there. We're passing students as a property. Oh, did this not all save? This one didn't save. There we go. Just didn't save. All right, so now it's displaying our students here. Well done. So using types with TypeScript, it's a very good way of organizing our data. It's a way of ensuring that our objects have the expected properties when we're trying to map them. It just makes everything a lot cleaner, a lot easier to work with. So I exported my type student, I imported it in page, and I imported it in my table. I passed the students into here as an array, and have the data over here, and passed everything in. Now, the next thing I actually want to do, let me get this out of the way. Just checking the time. Okay, I think I'll do it in the next video. What I'm going to do in the next video is make these headers dynamic, but in a different way.